A good handler never asked if the dog was right. He asked what the dog could afford to be wrong about. The dog was wrong before Rafe knew why. Mako snapped toward smoke, sweat, fuel, and fireworks residue, and 90 feet away, Tavo Miren vanished, one crowd wave deeper. In the Mexico City fan zone, 3 men were not chasing him. They were walking him like a route. Rafe had 1 minute to decide whether to trust the dog, the crowd, or the empty lane opening ahead. He kept 2 fingers on Mako's collar and let the leash bite his palm.
Hey, what are you doing?
Phone screens bobbed above shoulders. Flags cracked in the heat. Vendor wheels clicked over uneven pavement. The crowd did not move straight. It rolled, stalled, folded around police tape, then surged hard near a camera cluster. Tavo moved through it too cleanly, not fast, not panicked, just timed wrong for a man alone. A woman stumbled into his shoulder, and he did not react like a fan. He absorbed her weight, recovered on the exact beat the men around him recovered, and kept his eyes low, as if someone else owned the direction of his feet. For half a second, a flanker's forearm closed over Tavo's elbow, steered him past a camera pole, then vanished into a flag sweep before the fans behind him knew they had made cover. Rafe stayed low in a gray shirt and tournament credential, another tired contractor watching bodies ruin the idea of order. Nobody needed to know what he had been before. Men who introduced themselves through old wars usually wanted the room to clap, and rooms were useless under pressure. He watched spacing instead of faces. A boy in a green jersey spun left, and the wave took 30 people with him. Tavo did not spin. A vendor cart slowed 1 lane. Tavo never checked it. 2 men bent their shoulders to the crowd at his flanks. A third drifted ahead, never looking back, opening a seam before the seam existed. Mako's head came up. His ears cut forward, then flattened halfway, not a final answer, only a pressure note. Rafe breathed once through his nose. Food smoke, sweat, pavement heat. Too much noise for truth. Enough for warning. He moved with the crowd instead of against it, letting shoulders push him where a fight would have made him obvious. Mako matched the pressure at his left leg, trained enough not to pull, honest enough not to pretend certainty. Rafe felt the dog check him once, a quick head turned toward the hand on the collar. Handler's stress bled down a leash faster than most men admitted. A shoulder hit Rafe from behind. Not drunk, not lost. The contact arrived square, measured, then pressed a second longer than accident needed. Rafe let his weight go with it, turned enough to keep Mako clear, and felt a hard forearm test the space near his ribs. The man kept walking without apology. No look. No threat. Just a question delivered by bone and momentum. Are you security, or are you trouble? Rafe did not answer with his face. He answered by not turning around. The next crowd pulse bent behind a line of temporary barriers and took his sightline with it. Faces disappeared. Bodies remained. Shoulders, elbows, hips, knees. That was where control lived. Tavo's left hand twitched near his thigh every 4th step, as if he wanted to count and had been told not to. The lead man's head never turned toward Tavo. That mattered. Amateurs checked their prize. Professionals watched the gaps around it. Rafe saw 1 gap close behind Tavo, and another open ahead, near a strip of police tape sagging from a plastic post. The bump had done its work. Someone had confirmed his attention and given away their own. Somebody had planned a path through a place that was supposed to resist planning. The plan was not perfect. It had seams. The problem was that seams moved in crowds, and Rafe had only seconds to decide which one was real. He looked past the man who had bumped him and saw the lead drifter ahead of Tavo pause. Beside an opening lane, too clean for the crush around it, the lane held no vendors, no lost fans, no ordinary friction. It was a blank spot in a city that had run out of blank spots, so Rafe counted the bodies around it and found the absence louder than the chants. A chant broke hard to his right. The crowd leaned with it, and Tavo's pocket leaned the other way. Against the natural pull, moving as if it had heard a quieter command, Mako snapped toward a darker knot of smoke and heat near a cart. Pulling hard now, away from Tavo's line, toward the wrong pressure field. The leash cut deeper into Rafe's hand. The dog had pressure now. The crowd had timing. One of them was about to cost him the man. Mako pulled like the wrong answer had weight. Rafe went with him for 3 steps because trust had to be tested before it could be corrected. Smoke dropped low from a row of food carts, greasy and sweet, thick with burned peppers, hot fat, and charcoal. Fireworks residue hung under it. Fuel from a stalled service scooter cut through the sweat and pavement heat. Somewhere close, an animal barked once and vanished into the roar. The leash angle changed against Rafe's palm. Mako's shoulders tightened, then his head snapped left toward a knot of bodies beside a cart stacked with blue coolers. The dog was reading pressure. He was not reading truth. Rafe knew that, and still gave him the first 2 seconds. A handler who ignored the dog too fast was just another idiot with confidence and a leash. The crowd heat pressed against Rafe's face. His own grip had gone too hard on the collar, and Mako felt it. Handler stress was another cent in the mess, another signal pretending to be clean. Above them, fireworks thudded somewhere outside the visible street. Soft enough to be celebration, deep enough to make every animal body listen. The crowd folded around a temporary barrier and closed behind them. Rafe lost Tavo's shoulder line, then the flanker in the white cap. Then the clean gap the lead man had opened near the sagging tape. 3 losses, all small, all expensive, when Mako pushed harder, breath chopping, nails scraping over grit and crushed plastic. Rafe saw the source of the pull, then, a sweating man with a food tray, jammed against his chest. Panic, rising under the smoke, another man shoving past him too sharply. Heat rolling at dog height like a dirty wall. It was pressure, real pressure, but it was not Tavo's pressure. Rafe stopped moving with Mako and turned his hips back toward the line he had lost. The crowd punished the correction. A fan's elbow knocked his ribs. A flag wrapped across his eyes for half a second. By the time he cleared it, the service lane opening had shifted. For 1 full beat, Tavo disappeared behind flags and lifted phones, and gone so completely, Rafe felt the line die. Then a left hand twitched near a thigh, wrong rhythm, still alive. The lead drifter had used that half-second portents. The flankers had used it too. Professionals did not need space when timing would do. They borrowed bodies, borrowed noise, borrowed the small mercy of people not wanting to notice violence before it had a name. Tavo was deeper now. Not gone. Worse. Visible in fragments, then hidden again, 1 pressure zone past the place Rafe needed him to be. The men around him had not sprinted. They had not dragged him. They had let the fan surge do the work, stepping with it, using each chant and shoulder bump to move a living man through public noise. Rafe saw Tavo's hand twitch again near his thigh, 1 broken count, then nothing. The lead man did not look back. The flankers did not celebrate. A group of fans crossed between Rafe and the pocket, laughing, filming themselves, lifting cups like the city had offered them a harmless afternoon. Rafe put weight into the leash and made Mako stop. The dog head checked him once, fast and sharp, as if asking which mistake they were keeping. "Pressure," Rafe said under his breath. "Not truth." His voice came out flat enough. His palm said otherwise. Mako's ears flicked at the word vaye, then pinned toward Tavo's direction again, late but not useless. That was the ugly part. The dog had not failed. The world had given him too many honest lies. The phone vibrated against Rafe's side before he reached for it. Unknown number. He let it buzz twice while he found Tavo again between two flags. Farther than he had any right to be. Then he answered without taking his eyes off the movement. A woman's voice came through, clipped, dry, and close to angry. Rafe Calder. He did not ask who she was. He knew the voice. Selah Vale had once made bad news sound like a calendar adjustment. "You are looking at Tavo Miren," she said. "Do not let them take him out of the fan zone." Rafe shifted with a chant wave and kept Mako tight against his leg. "Who owns the three around him?" he asked. "Not ours," Selah said. "Not public security. They need him breathing." The clean lane opened another few feet, too patient to be accident. Rafe watched Tavo move toward it, one forced step at a time. "Why alive?" he asked. A pause hit the line. Not fear. Calculation. The crowd roared over the answer, and Selah waited it out instead of repeating herself into noise. "Because dead, he is useless to them," she said. "And if they make him walk the next section, we may not get him back at all tonight, not with anything useful left." Selah did not answer fast. That told Rafe more than a long explanation would have. Fast answers were for simple problems. And Tavo Miren was moving through the fan zone like a man with a clock buried under his skin. The clean lane ahead kept widening by inches, too calm inside the heat shimmer. Too empty inside a city full of bodies trying to become one larger body. Police tape sagged from a plastic post. Phone screens rose and fell behind it. Flags snapped above shoulders and hid the places where hands touched elbows, where hips steered hips, where a frightened man could be moved without anyone calling it violence. Rafe kept Mako tight against his left thigh. The dog's ribs worked fast against the leash pressure, still coming down from the wrong pull. Rafe loosened 2 fingers on the collar. Mako head checked him immediately, a sharp look up, then back toward the lane. The dog had felt the change in his hand before most people would have heard it in his voice. "Say it," Rafe said. He moved sideways with the crowd, not toward Tavo yet, not toward the clean lane. Movement first. Answers second. Selah's voice came through the phone flat and close, warped by chant waves and bad signal. "He has no package." "That was not what I asked." "No file, no phone, no drive, no camera, no recording, no static map, nothing they can steal off him and carry away." Rafe saw Tavo between 2 lifted flags. His mouth moved once, a silent count or a prayer. Then closed hard when the man on his right leaned in. Fear changed faces. It made guilty men look innocent and trapped men look bought. Tavo's fear was controlled down to the muscles around his eyes, and that was the wrong kind of control. "Then, why alive?" Rafe asked. Selah exhaled once. "Because he is the route until they make him walk it." The words landed without drama. They still changed the street. Rafe stopped searching Tavo's hands. He stopped checking pockets, waistlines, phone shapes, all the small object lies men used when they wanted the world to make sense. The route was not a thing. It was rhythm, chants, landmarks, timing, pressure. A left turn taken after a chant surge, a pause beside a vendor cart. A second step delayed at a service gate while bodies compressed behind police tape. A memory built in motion and broken by the wrong motion. That made Tavo harder to recover than any device and uglier to lose. Rafe watched the men around him keep him walking with almost no visible force. One shoulder crowded. One elbow opened. One body ahead slowed just enough to set a tempo. Tavo obeyed. then spoiled one step by a fraction and hated himself when the flanker corrected him with a shoulder. Rafe could see it in the way his left hand twitched at each landmark, as if counting kept him from coming apart. "You call that an asset?" Rafe said. The line stayed quiet for half a beat. "Under pressure? Yes. Don't call him an asset." His own voice had gone colder than he intended. Mako felt it. The dog's head came up and pushed once into Rafe's wrist. Not affection, correction. Rafe made himself breathe through the heat and the low smoke. Years ago, a man had asked for help while a clean route stayed clean. Rafe had protected the route. The memory had no sound now, only a mouth opening behind dust, and a hand he had not reached. Selah did not apologize. That was one reason he still trusted her when trusting her was inconvenient. "Then keep him alive long enough to be a man," she said. "And keep him walking wrong." "Wrong how?" "Break their rhythm. Do not chase the thing he is carrying. There is no thing. Intercept the movement." The clean lane opened another body width. It had no vendor drift, no stalled fan, no security vest cutting through, no drunk tourist spinning into the wrong place, no ordinary human waste. Even the flags seemed to bend away from it. The sound inside it thinned, too, as if the crowd had been taught not to spend noise there. Tavo's pocket angled toward the gap, and the crowd around him made the choice look natural. Rafe saw the trap before he owned the proof. Cade's people did not need him to believe the lane was safe. They only needed him to choose, as if safety had shape. Mako stiffened, this time not toward smoke, but toward the thin edge where the lane touched the crowd. Truer pressure. Still not truth. Rafe put the phone lower against his chest and kept Selah on the line. "He is not leaving through that gap," he said. Selah's answer came small under the roar. "Then someone made it for you." And the lane looked safer every second, which made it worse. Rafe stayed outside its mouth and let the chant wave carry him half a step sideways. The gap should have been filthy with movement. Vendors should have been dragging carts through it. Lost fans should have been stopping there to argue over tickets, phones, gates, friends. Security drift should have cut across it at least once. Instead, the lane held itself open between temporary barriers and sagging police tape. A narrow strip of heat and pale pavement with noise breaking around it. Clean lanes did not happen here. They got made. Tavo's pocket angled toward it under a pressure that looked almost kind. Lout. One man ahead slowed. One man on Tavo's right gave him less shoulder. The crowd accepted the change, as if the route had always been there. Rafe did not. Mako's body tightened against his leg, not smoke-drunk now, not chasing garbage heat. His head cut right, then checked left, warning from the flank instead of the lane itself. Better signal. Less truth than anyone wanted. "Rafe, don't let them choose your next step," Selah said in his ear. "They already tried." He lowered the phone without ending the call and moved away from the open lane, forcing his own line through the uglier bodies near the barrier. The decision cost him immediately. A man with a red scarf drifted where no man had been a second before. Not blocking Rafe's target, blocking the place Rafe would need after he refused the bait. That was the signature. Cade did not attack the guarded point. He removed the next option. Somewhere behind that choice, a watcher had turned away from the bait before Rafe refused it. Already studying where his refusal would put him. Rafe saw it as a pattern before he saw the man clearly. A shoulder closed near his ribs. A plastic cup burst underfoot. The crowd noise lifted, then flattened. Mako pushed forward, but Rafe held him tight because the dog could feel the flank and still not know the shape of the trap. Tavo turned his head a fraction. Not enough to ask for help. Enough to show he knew the lane was wrong and feared the cost of not entering it. Rafe met the motion for less than a blink. "Not that way," he said, too low for Tavo to hear, maybe low enough for himself. The first impact came from the side, hard and low, swallowed by a chant that hit the barriers like thrown gravel. Rafe let it move him rather than fight the first contact square. Bad footing took the mercy out of that choice. His heels slid on crushed ice from a spilled drink. A forearm drove into his lower ribs. Not a wild swing, not a street mistake. Pressure with purpose. Mako lunged once, checked by bodies and leash and Rafe's hand on the collar. Rafe kept the dog out of the crush and paid for it. The second hit glanced off his shoulder and drove him into hot plastic barrier. Pain opened under his right side. Sharp enough to steal a breath, and quiet enough that nobody 10 feet away cared. He turned with it, got his feet under him, and saw the red scarf man already moving on. Job done. No speech. No face held too long. Just a mark placed on Rafe's body and a message delivered to whoever watched from the clean lane. The crowd closed around the contact and made it almost nothing. That was the trick. Violence did not need to be hidden if it could pass for crowd pressure. Rafe forced air back into his lungs and changed the way he stood. The injury pulled when he twisted. Small now, useful later, to anyone patient enough to study him. Mako pressed against his knee, vibrating, ears high, waiting for a command that Rafe would not give in a place full of civilian legs. And panic waiting to happen. Tavo's pocket had not entered the clean lane. That was the win. It was also why Rafe distrusted it. Correct reads should not leave room for comfort. Ahead, the men around Tavo adjusted again. They did not shove him toward the open strip. They let it remain available, bright and wrong. While the crowd to the left began to thicken with a rhythm that did not match the chant. One still man near a cluster of flags shifted half a beat before everyone else. And the bodies near him obeyed without knowing they had obeyed. Rafe tasted smoke and blood at the back of his throat. The pain made his next breath shallow, which meant his next choice had to be cleaner. The enemy had learned he was not ordinary security. They had marked his side, preserved the bait, and started moving the crowd itself. Selah, he said, eyes on the still man. They are shaping the wave now. The crowd did not move wrong all at once. It failed by degrees. First the chant lifted on the right and bodies leaned left, a normal correction inside a packed fan zone. Then the flags above them snapped in a direction the shoulders below did not follow. Then Tavo's pocket slowed without hitting a barrier, without meeting a cart, without any visible reason except a man near the flags shifting half a beat early. Rafe kept his injured side away from the hardest pressure and watched the absence. The still man wore the celebration like borrowed clothing. His mouth never opened with the chant. His head never turned toward Tavo. His hands stayed low, empty, patient. Phone screens blinked around him. Fans jumped, laughed, cursed, filmed. He did none of it. He arrived before the compression, not after. That was the tell. Not magic. Not a mark. Timing. Mako felt the pressure and tightened at Rafe's knee, but the dog did not choose the man. The choice belonged to Rafe, and his ribs made every breath cost rent. Heat gathered under his shirt. The barrier beside him ticked each time the crowd hit it, cheap plastic pretending to be order. Rafe, what are you seeing? Selah asked. Her voice had dropped under the crowd noise, clipped enough to cut wire. Rafe moved 2 steps with a chant surge, not toward the still man, not away from him. Not the loud one, he said. A fan in a yellow mask screamed near his ear, and the sound covered the pain when his side pulled wung. The still one? That is not enough. Rafe watched the man refuse to look at Tavo again. He watched him arrive half a step before a wave folded near the flags. The bodies around him obeyed pressure they thought belonged to themselves. It is when everyone else is lying with their feet. The still man's job was not strength. It was permission. And he gave the crowd places to go before the crowd knew it wanted them. Rafe stopped chasing Tavo's shoulders and read the pressure ring instead. Who created space? Who spent it? In never paid for it. The still man spent nothing. That made him expensive. A drunk fan bumped him and bounced off Hote. The man never corrected aches. He had already placed his weight where the next wave needed him. Rafe made the decision in the thin space between two chants. He did not need a speech from his own past. He needed the moment when the still man's half-beat would matter most. A surge built behind the flags, and Tavo's pocket prepared to ride it. The still man set himself to open the next seam, and Rafe broke his rhythm before the seam formed. The result was small enough for the crowd to misunderstand, and sharp enough for the route to feel it. The still man lost his half-beat, hit the barrier wrong, and folded out of the pressure line with his control gone. The flag above him snapped once against his cheek. He flinched late, the first late thing he had done. The bodies that had been waiting for his invisible permission arrived too soon. Then too late, then not together at all. Fans cursed, but a phone spun into the air and vanished. The wave buckled around the gap instead of carrying Tavo cleanly through it. A shoulder that should have opened a seam jammed into another fan instead, and the whole pocket stuttered. Mako gave one hard pull toward the collapsing pressure, then checked back. Uncertain, useful, still only a dog reading a dirty field. Tavo stumbled for the first time. Not far, not free, but off rhythm. That was enough to make the route limp, and the flankers had to close by hand because the crowd no longer carried Tavo cleanly. Ordinary irritation hid the damage. The enemy changed shape immediately. Professionals did not grieve lost pieces in public. They replaced pressure. The flankers closed tighter around Tavo, using their own shoulders now because the crowd no longer carried him for free. The clean lane stayed open, too patient, but it no longer drank the crowd in the same clean line. The fan wave began to fight itself. Rafe breathed through the pain and saw the cost before Selah did. She had moved under the space his disruption created, put it stepping into a narrow service angle to keep eyes on Tavo. For 3 seconds, she was no longer just a voice in his ear. She was a body near the edge of the pressure field, still and useful, and someone else saw it too. Across the crowd, a man Rafe had not given full weight to turned his face away. From Tavo and toward Selah. Cade. He did not stare. He did not warn. He changed the next option. A flanker shifted, opening Tavo's line just enough to place Selah inside the problem. Another body moved behind her, not fast, not rough, simply early. Rafe tasted blood again and tightened his hand on Mako's collar. Selah, move. I have Tavo. No, Rafe said. The crowd compressed between them. They have you. Selah's exposure changed the geometry faster than a shout would have. Rafe saw it before she accepted it. The body behind her arrived early, and the flanker near Tavo loosened just enough to make her position look like a mistake she had chosen. Cade had not gone after the guarded point, but he had moved the next option again. Tavo's pocket shifted sideways, not toward escape now, but across the shallow line between Rafe and Selah. A frightened man became a moving wall because other men placed him there. Tavo's face turned once through a gap of flags, pale with heat and control. His eyes found Rafe and slid away fast, ashamed of a choice he had not made. His shoulder tried to slip out of the angle once. The man beside him corrected it with hip pressure, neat enough to look like crowd drift. Civilians crossed behind him with cups lifted and phones out, laughing into a pressure field they could not read. Rafe had a clean action for one breath. The line existed. It was open enough to tempt a professional, ugly enough to punish a human being. Selah saw it too. "Rafe," she said, "you have the line." Mako's breath changed at his knee, and a tight, uncertain pulse. Rafe's ribs pulled when he inhaled. "Not a clean one." He said it softly and moved before the refusal could become hesitation. His body wanted the easy geometry. Training always did. Distance solved problems by pretending people were shapes. Tavo stood inside that lie now, forced into the space where a clean answer would make him part of the math. Two civilians crossed the same angle. A woman dragging a child by the wrist, and a man backing up with his phone, raised. Rafe could see the possible stop. He could also see the child's shoulder, Selah's exposed flank. Tavo's locked jaw, the way Cade's placement had made restraint predictable. "No," Rafe said, "not to Selah, not to the enemy. Maybe to the old voice in him that liked clean routes too much. He's not cover, he's a man." The words cost less than the choice. The choice cost the street. Mako pressed forward, then checked, reading Rafe's tension and the crowd's wrongness without solving either. The dog had pressure. The street had bodies. Rafe chose the bodies and gave up the line. Cade weaponized the choice instantly. Rafe saw him only in pieces, a dark shirt behind a flag. A face turned away at the exact second most men would look. One hand low near Tavo's shoulder without gripping it. Quiet control. No speech. No hurry. Tavo's pocket compressed and drove towards Selah, using him alive. Using him careful. Using him where Rafe would not cut through. The crowd folded in on Rafe from both sides. A barrier rattled against his hip. His injured ribs tightened around half a breath. Mako angled toward the pressure near Selah, then snapped back as three bodies stepped between dog and handler line. Not an attack. Worse. Ordinary people placed at the wrong second. Cade did not need panic when timing would do. Rafe pushed through the uglier side of the crowd, shoulder first, keeping one hand low on Mako's collar. The leash dragged across his palm. Heat under his shirt turned slick. The noise narrowed until he heard breath. Barrier, leash, foot scrape. His old advantage had become a shrinking space between strangers. Selah backed a step, then stopped herself, because backing placed her exactly where the flanker wanted her. "Move left," Rafe said. "Left is closed," she answered. Her voice stayed flat. That made the fear easier to hear. The distance died in pieces. First, the clear sight line went behind flags. Then the room to move narrowed between a vendor cart and a hot metal barricade. Then Tavo's body crossed the last usable angle, and the clean action vanished, as if it had never been offered. Rafe kept moving anyway. Refusal had to spend itself, or it was just morality, with better posture. He cut towards Selah, through shoulder pressure and chant noise. Each step smaller than he wanted, each breath shallower than the last. Mako stayed tight until a surge of fans broke the leash path and forced the dog half a body behind him. The support chain stretched Rafe felt it like a wire about to snap. Ahead, Cade let Tavo's pocket slow just enough for Rafe to close into worse space. That was the offer now. Not distance. Contact. A man stepped into Rafe's near side, large enough to take the gap. Calm enough not to look like an accident. Rafe shifted his weight, and pain lit under his ribs. The world shrank to heat and hard shoulders. Selah said his name once. Tavo's mouth moved around a count he could not finish. Mako's growl vanished under the crowd roar. Rafe lowered his center and went in close, where clean things went to die. Breaker did not rush him. That was the first bad sign. Big men who wanted to scare a crowd moved like weather. This one moved like a door closing. He stepped into Rafe's near side and took the space where Mako should have been. Shoulder turned, weight quiet, eyes on the leash line between hand and dog. Rafe tried to pivot through him and felt his injured ribs answer so. With a white pull that cut the breath in half. Spilled soda shone under his heel. Bodies pressed from behind. A vendor wheel ground over a broken cup. Mako surged, hit a wall of legs and hips, and fell half a body farther back. The leash dragged across Rafe's palm and caught on sweat-burned skin. Breaker saw the small flinch and stepped on the angle. Not the foot, making Mako's path worse without making a scene. Breaker had not cut the man. He had cut the team when Selah's voice broke through crowd noise. "Rafe, he's cutting you off." "No," he said, getting 1 foot under him. "He's cutting the dog." Breaker's shoulder hit the same rib line again, patient enough to be professional, hard enough to make the street small. The pain spread under the ribs and stayed there, waiting. Rafe fought for inches, not victory. Victory was too large for the space. Heat, plastic barrier, breath, pain, and the dirty shine under moving shoes became the whole world. Breaker used the crowd better than most men used a room. When Rafe shifted left, Breaker gave him half a lane and made the leash angle worse. And when Rafe shifted right, Breaker let a flagpole and 2 laughing fans close the dog path. Mako barked once, sharp and furious, then stopped because noise was not access. "Good dog. Bad space." Rafe took the next contact on his forearm instead of his ribs and let numbness take the hand and stayed loose. The numbness spread into his fingers until the collar felt farther away than it was. He could not win clean. He could only keep Breaker from owning the passage. Tavo moved ahead in flashes, nearer the exit pressure, pushed by bodies that pretended to be random. His mouth moved around a count. 1, 2, lost. Selah was close enough to see him now and too exposed to stay there. "Mako can't get through," Rafe said. "Move anyway." Selah did not answer. She was counting space, which meant she understood the price. Breaker heard enough. His attention shifted to Rafe's hand on the collar. Then he drove in again, compact and low, using crowd pressure as cover. Rafe's breath left him in pieces, each piece smaller than the last. He hit the hot barrier with his back and felt the plastic flex. Mako tried to climb through the bodies, blocked by knees, bags, flags, ordinary fear. A woman cursed at the dog without understanding what she had stepped into. Breaker's weight pinned Rafe's timing before it could become motion. Rafe did not answer with anything anyone needed to name. He waited through the first shove, let Breaker spend weight into the crowd, and shifted only when the man had to reset his feet. Timing, not strength. Restraint, not cleanliness. He got 1 shoulder past fourth. Enough to see Tavo being walked toward a service opening framed by hot metal posts and a stalled cart. Not gone yet. Worse. Almost useful. The sight cost Rafe attention. Breaker punished it with a hard shoulder across the injured side. Pain narrowed the fan zone to 1 bright point, then let sound back in wrong. Rafe dropped his phone. It slipped when his numbed fingers failed and skittered under shoes toward the barrier. Small equipment cost. Ugly and immediate. Selah's voice vanished with it. Mako lunged again, and the leash snapped tight across Rafe's wrist, burning skin. Rafe kept hold, because letting go would turn urgency into chaos. Breaker's face stayed empty, practical, almost bored. Delay was his job. He was good at it. Rafe shoved through a half gap, caught bad footing, and took another body into his shoulder. Selah was pinned between the service lane angle and Tavo's moving pocket, forced to choose whether to stay safe or change the route. Behind her, Blocked traffic sat useless beyond temporary barriers. Vehicles would not save anyone. Feet would. Pressure would. Selah understood at the same moment Rafe did. Her head turned toward the service cut, then toward Tavo, and her face stopped being logistics. It became decision. Rafe pulled air through pain and kept Breaker occupied for one more breath. "Selah," he said, too low for the lost phone and loud enough for himself. "You're the cut now." Tavo was 2 crowd waves from the service mouth. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than Rafe could not reach him with distance, could not reach him with Mako, and could not reach him without paying more body than the street deserved. Selah was the only line left that Cade had not fully priced yet. Breaker leaned in again, giving him pain instead of time, which was the cleaner bargain for them. Now, the service lane should have belonged to vehicles. It did not. A delivery van sat trapped behind temporary barriers, nose angled toward a metal gate it could not reach. A security cart blinked useless amber in the heat. Horns sounded beyond the blockage, thin under the chants. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than bodies, moved faster than engines now. That changed the route. Rafe saw it from inside Breaker's pressure, breath broken, ribs pulling, Mako still half a body behind the wrong legs. Cade's team had tried to make the vehicle exit matter, then adapted when the street refused it. Foot pressure became the faster machine. Tavo was being walked toward the service mouth in a rhythm built from landmarks. Barrier post, vendor cart, gate shadow, second chant, step. His lips moved around the count. Selah stepped into the route before anyone had the courtesy to call it wise. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than. She put herself between the gate shadow and Tavo's next forced beat. Not wide. Not dramatic. Just enough body in the wrong place to damage the timing. Cade's support line shifted toward her, and that was the proof. They had already seen her. She had decided to be useful anyway. Selah stopped calling him anything but his name. "Tavo," she said, sharp enough to cut through the chant. "Break the count." Tavo's face twisted as if the words hurt worse than the men around him. The flanker at his right leaned in, guiding pressure without grabbing. Tavo slowed at the wrong landmark. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Not much. Half a step beside the vendor cart instead of the gate shadow. The route hitched. His mouth moved again. 4, 6, 3. Wrong on purpose. Fear went from trapped to terrified, because breaking a rhythm was not freedom. It was a way to invite punishment while still being moved. Selah stepped harder into the gap and took a shoulder into her side. Her breath left her, but she did not fold. "Good," she said. Again. Mako's head came up behind Rafe, different now. Not smoke. Not garbage heat. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. The dog read a cleaner pressure pattern. Bodies trying to repair one broken rhythm around one breathing man. Rafe felt it through the leash before he saw it. Mako did not know the route. He knew the movement had become honest enough to read. Breaker pressed again, trying to keep Rafe blind to what the dog had found. Rafe used what he could still see. The support man moving behind Selah was not the loud one. Not the closest one. Not the man pretending to shove. He was the one arriving early to close her exit after she cut the beat. Same music, different instrument, is less than #0. 4# is greater than Rafe's body, wanted more room than the lane allowed. His ribs wanted him to stop. He gave neither a vote. He shifted with Breaker's pressure instead of against it, took the pain, and made the support man spend his next step into bad timing. The disruption was small, public, and final enough for its purpose. The man trying to cut off Selah lost her exit angle, hit the stalled cart wrong, and turned into the ordinary bodies he was supposed to use. No one looked up. Selah got one more foot of room. Tavo used it badly, which made it useful, is less than #0. 4 is greater than. He refused the next cue and let the flankers' pressure overrun him. The route bent. The forced reconstruction weakened. Fans cursed, metal rattled, and the service lane lost its clean shape under ordinary anger and heat. One flanker reached to rebuild the pocket and found only a shoulder from a tourist who wanted his phone back. Cade was exposed because there was no one left to buy the next option for him. The crowd did not open around him anymore. It argued with him, spending elbows and cups where his support had spent timing. Tavo's broken count had damaged the smooth line. E is less than #0. 4 is greater than. Selah's body had cut the service route. Mako's pressure cue had given Rafe the moment to read support. Rafe's disruption had removed the man closing Selah's exit. Every useful layer cost something, and the bill came due in the same breath. Selah held her side and stayed on her feet. Tavo sagged, then forced himself upright, eyes wet with pain and effort. Rafe's ribs burned when he pulled against Breaker's weight. Mako returned to his knee, tense and late, leash hot across Rafe's wrist. Across the service mouth, Cade turned fully for the first time. Is less than #0. 5 is greater than. He looked past Tavo, past Selah, past the broken support line, and found Rafe inside the compression. No anger, no surprise, just calculation without cover. He released Tavo's shoulder as if handing the route to the street for 1 second, and stepped into the space himself. The distance between them was not distance anymore. It was a body length of heat, metal, sweat, and unfinished cost. Cade came through it personally. Cade came through the body length like he had been waiting for distance to die. He did not rush. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. He let the crowd close behind him. Let the service gate rattle at Selah's back. Let Tavo sag under a rhythm he had broken and not escaped. Rafe had no line, no clean geometry, no useful space. The old work of distance, the patient sorting of one body from another, had been crushed down to heat against skin and breath caught under cracked ribs. Cade's eyes stayed off Rafe's face. They worked lower, reading the injury, the leash burn, the way his right side guarded itself before pain admitted anything. Good, bad, honest, is less than #0. 3 is greater than. A paper flag scraped across Rafe's cheek and stuck there for a second with sweat. He did not lift a hand to clear it. Hands mattered now. Rafe shifted to keep Mako tight, but the dog was late and shaking. Shoulder pressed by bodies, breath rough from fighting the crowd. Selah held her side and moved between Tavo and the service mouth, because she was stubborn enough to mistake damage for permission. "Rafe," she said, voice thin. "He's inside you." Rafe watched Cade's near hand, the shoulder behind it, the half-step held in reserve. "I know." Cade smiled without making it a thing. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. No line now. The words were quiet enough to be private. Rafe drew one careful breath and felt it snag. Still timing. Cade took the next option away before Rafe chose it. He stepped into the leash path, not toward Mako, not toward Selah, toward the space that would make all 3 wrong at once. Rafe moved to block and paid through the ribs. Pain bent his stance. Cade read that and pressed there. Not with drama, not with rage, just pressure placed where damage already lived. His forearm rode the rib line for half a second too long. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. The kind of contact civilians saw as collision, and trained men felt as a lock being tested. Rafe lost half a breath and one clean angle. The crowd noise flattened around him until he could hear Cade's shoes scrape grit. Mako's claws drag. Selah's breath stop each time Tavo swayed. Tavo did not solve anything. He stayed upright because falling would give Cade a new route through him. His broken count trembled on his lips. 4. Nothing. 3. The root knowledge had not vanished. It had been damaged, smeared, made dangerous in a different way, is less than #0. 5 hashes greater than Cade reached for that danger by shifting Tavo back into the line. Rafe refused to chase the hand. He watched the body behind it. Sniper discipline had never been about the shot first. It was about what a man intended before the movement admitted itself. Cade wanted Rafe high, wanted him fast, wanted the injured side to panic and open. He used Tavo's lean as bait and Selah's pain as the wall behind it. Rafe gave him slow instead. Too slow for comfort. Fast men like to believe slow was fear. Sometimes it was arithmetic with blood in it. Mako bought the opening badly. Is less than #0. 4 hash is greater than. The dog drove through a gap that closed as he entered it. Shoulder hitting knees, leash snapping hard across Rafe's wrist. No command. No clean save. Just loyalty spending itself into a dirty second. Cade's attention cut to the dog because any smart man respected a moving problem. It cost Mako. A body clipped him from the side, and he hit the pavement with a rough sound that went straight into Rafe's chest. The dog scrambled up, limping, still trying to come forward. Nails skating over grit and soda, mouth open but no sound getting out. That was the second Rafe used. Is less than #0. 4 hash is greater than not enough for victory. Enough to change whose timing owned the space. Selah shoved Tavo backward with her good shoulder, taking his weight before he could fall into Cade's path. She grunted once and stayed on her feet. Tavo grabbed the edge of the cart and held, shaking, alive. Not useful in any clean way, except that he was not where Cade wanted him. Rafe stepped into the hole Mako had paid for and took Cade's forward intent on the smallest line available. The impact drove pain up his side and made his vision tighten at the edges. He did not fight the whole man. He fought the next inch. Is less than #0. 4 hash is greater than the shoulder. The breath. The reset. Cade tried to turn the compression into leverage. Rafe let him spend it. Felt the reset begin under Cade's shoulder, then broke the timing before it returned. The struggle hit the service gate hard enough to make metal scream. Fans scattered one step, then stopped, unsure if they had seen violence or just another ugly accident. Cade's face came close enough for Rafe to smell sweat and dust on him. "You were better with distance," Cade said. Rafe had no air for wit. "You were safer there." Cade tried once more to remove the next option, driving toward the space between Selah and Tavo, and found there was no next option left that did not pass through Rafe's damaged body. That was not heroism. It was bad accounting. Rafe gave up balance, accepted the last pain through the injured side, and let Cade carry too much weight into the gap. Cade's shoulder came forward, his hips followed late. Rafe used that delay. The street narrowed to Cade's breath, Mako's rough strain. Selah's hand locked around Tavo's shirt, the hot metal bite against Rafe's back. Then, the timing changed. Is less than #0. 4 hash is greater than Cade, lost forward pressure, and went down into the crush of pavement and spilled grit with Rafe on him. Not clean, not pretty, not silent. Rafe held long enough for Cade's route to die under him. No speech. No confession. No sudden justice arriving in uniform. Just a man stopped by another man who had run out of clean choices. Cade tried to rise and failed because Rafe's weight, Selah's cut, Mako's paid second, and Tavo's broken count had all made the same ugly sentence. Local extraction over. Not the whole route. Not the whole damage. Is less than #0. 4 hash is greater than. Rafe rolled off before the crowd could crush them both and felt the loss of strength hit like weather. Mako pressed against his leg, panting hard, one forepaw lifted. Selah still had Tavo. Tavo was breathing. Cade was not moving toward him anymore. The service lane had become ordinary again, which meant it could hide anything. Rafe tasted blood, smoke, hot metal. Victory arrived incomplete and did not bother apologizing. The street did not applaud. It adjusted. A man stepped around Cade without knowing his name. Is less than #0. 5 is greater than. A woman pulled her child away from the spilled cups and kept filming the fan zone. Because the chants had started rising again beyond the barriers. Food smoke rolled back over the service lane, softening the metal heat, hiding the sharp edges of what had just happened. Rafe sat with one shoulder against the hot gate and one hand on Mako's collar. His ribs had settled into a deep, practical fire. The dog stood pressed to his knee, breathing rough, one forepaw touching down and lifting again. Not broken, maybe. Not fine. Rafe knew the difference and did not like either answer. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. Cade lay, turned against the pavement, stopped locally, not made harmless by a speech or a badge or a miracle. Selah had Tavo beside the cart, one arm across his back, her own breath catching when she moved. Tavo stayed upright because she gave him something to lean into and because fear had not finished using him yet. He was alive. That was the first count. It was not the last. Selah looked worse when she tried not to. Sweat had pasted hair to her temple. Her side had taken more than she wanted to show, and every careful inhale told on her. Tavo's breathing, she said. Rafe nodded once. Is less than #0. 3 is greater than. Then we are not done losing yet. She did not argue. That was answer enough. Tavo's lips moved without sound. The rhythm still lived in him, damaged but present, a root memory broken wrong, not erased. Landmarks had been crossed out by panic. Timing had been bent. Pressure had been interrupted. None of that made the knowledge safe. It made it unstable. A man could carry a dangerous thing without wanting it, and wanting did not change the weight. Tavo swallowed and looked toward the service mouth, as if it might pull him again. I broke it wrong, he said. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. His voice sounded scraped raw. Rafe got one knee under him and hated the amount of work that took. Wrong was the only right thing left. Selah gave him a look for that, almost tired enough to count as humor. Almost. Mako leaned harder into Rafe's leg. The dog's breath came fast, then hitched when a fresh burst of fireworks rolled over the fan zone. Rafe put his palm flat between Mako's shoulders and felt heat, muscle, tremor. No crowd cheered the dog. No one knew to. Better that way. Public gratitude was just another noise animals had to survive. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. A street vendor with a dented cooler and a towel over one shoulder, edged close enough to see the blood on Rafe's shirt and the smear on his cart wheel. He looked at Cade, then at Mako, then at the cart, arranging the world by what cost him money first. Sensible man. You bleeding on my cart? He asked. Rafe looked down. There was blood on the metal edge, not much, enough. Little bit. The vendor frowned at Mako. Is the dog all right? Rafe rubbed the dog's neck once, feeling the tremor ease and return. He will be before I am. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. The vendor absorbed that, decided it was not a useful answer, and went to rescue a stack of plastic cups from under someone's shoe. The chant swelled again, too far away and too near, thousands of voices trying to turn damage back into afternoon. A phone alert chirped. A flag snapped overhead. Grease smoke thickened, and someone complained about a blocked gate, as if blocked gates were the main tragedy available. Rafe did not leave alone. Selah kept one hand on Tavo. Rafe kept one hand on Mako. Together they moved 3 careful steps away from the service mouth, and no farther than they had to. Is less than #0. 5 hashes greater than Cade remained, stopped behind them, a local failure in a larger mess. Somewhere beyond the fan zone map in Tavo's head, other streets still existed. Some of them were wrong now. Some might still be usable. That was for the next ugly minute. For this one, Tavo breathed, Mako stood, Selah stayed upright, and Rafe did not fall. The vendor pushed his cart wheel free with a squeal, and gave Rafe a look like blood was bad for business. Rafe gave him half a nod. Sorry about the cart. The vendor snorted. Is less than #0. 3 hash is greater than. The street kept moving around them, because streets were honest in one way, people usually were not. They did not care who had earned